The United States and BRICS countries are once again on a collision course, but this time it seems the U.S. is preparing stronger measures, as more and more nations are looking toward de-dollarization.
I would not allow countries to go off the dollar, because when we lose that standard, that will be like losing a revolutionary war. That will be a hit to our country, just like losing a war. And we can't let that happen. And too many countries now are fighting to get off the dollar.
Former President Donald Trump, who is now seeking re-election, has made it clear that if he becomes president again, he will not stay silent and will impose 100% tariffs on countries that consider abandoning the dollar. These words should be taken seriously, as they could have significant international consequences.
So when Donald Trump is talking about tariffs, you do have to take it seriously, because he does have a record as a former president of having used tariffs among the U.S. economic arsenal quite prolifically, right?
Donald Trump is no stranger to imposing tariffs. As a matter of fact, this is one of the strategies he used as president to get other nations to comply with policies that are more beneficial to the United States. But why is he proposing this strategy at this time? Three countries are at the center of this currency battle: Russia, Saudi Arabia, and China. While the United States are not on the talking table with Russia at the moment, they still have a lot to lose if Saudi Arabia and China should succeed in switching away from the US dollar. The impact will be a major catastrophe for the US economy. In 2023 alone, trade between the US and China was approximately $575 billion, with imports from China accounting for the bulk of this money at over $427 billion. That is a lot of money China is making from the United States. What is even more interesting is that this is the lowest trade volume between both countries in the last 10 years. Nevertheless, the US remains China's main source of revenue, and they won't want to lose that market. For comparison, China's exports to Russia in 2023 amounted to only $110 billion. This is a tricky business for every party involved. For China, de-dollarization would mean freedom from the United States' foreign policies. But on the other hand, Beijing does not want to lose all the money it makes from the United States. But it seems the US is the one with the most at stake here. You may be wondering why the dollar has become so powerful that most international trades are done in the US dollar. Brazil's president, Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva, has been questioning the dominance of the US dollar in international trade. He's not alone in this thinking, as many experts and leaders have been advocating for a more diversified global currency system. Lula's inquiry stems from the idea that the US dollar's powerful position gives the United States disproportionate influence over global trade and finance. Lula's concerns are rooted in the fact that the US dollar has been the primary reserve currency since the mid-20th century, and most international transactions, including oil and commodity trades, are settled in dollars. This creates a dependency on the US financial system and allows the US to impose economic sanctions and restrictions on other countries. But the biggest trade the US dollar controls is the international oil trade, which has Saudi Arabia at its center. This is why Saudi Arabia would be a primary target in this de-dollarization war. In recent years, the scale of petrodollar trade has been shrinking. For example, in 2020, the volume of petrodollar trade was estimated at less than $3.5 trillion annually. In 2022 and 2023, the daily value of oil exports from the Gulf countries alone exceeded $1 billion. Saudi Arabia, China, and Russia are making significant efforts to completely abandon petrodollar trade and instead trade crude oil in their local currencies. It was the petrodollar system that helped maintain the US dollar's status as the world's primary reserve currency. This dominance allows the US to run large trade deficits and borrow at lower costs, as there is a consistent demand for dollars globally. However, recent discussions about diversifying oil trade currencies, particularly by major exporters like Saudi Arabia, have raised questions about the future of the petrodollar system. Recently, there were speculations that Saudi Arabia is refusing to renew a petrodollar agreement it had with the United States since 1974.
Well, Saudi Arabia has decided to terminate its 50-year-old petrodollar agreement with the United States. As per reports, the deal was signed on June 8, 1974, but has expired on June 9, 2024, and the Middle East country has not renewed it.
Experts have pointed out that there was never a formal agreement with a fixed 50-year term. Instead, the arrangement was part of broader economic cooperation between the U.S. and Saudi Arabia, aimed at stabilizing the global oil market and ensuring the flow of petrodollars into U.S. financial assets. While Saudi Arabia has shown interest in diversifying its economic partnerships and has indicated a willingness to accept other currencies for oil sales, the fundamental relationship between the U.S. and Saudi Arabia remains strong. The Saudi riyal is still pegged to the U.S. dollar, and the kingdom continues to hold significant dollar-denominated assets. So perhaps the situation is not yet as bad as some presume it to be. De-dollarization, if it occurs, could have a significant impact on the U.S. and the global economy, but it will be a gradual process rather than a sudden collapse. The loss of the dollar's status as the world's reserve currency could create inflationary pressures and make borrowing more difficult for the U.S. But global central banks will likely act cautiously to minimize risk to their own economies. Despite this trend, the dollar remains the primary currency for global trade and finance. Steps toward de-dollarization taken by individual countries, such as China and the UAE, are part of a long-term diversification strategy. China and the UAE have deepened their financial ties by trading energy resources in yuan. The UAE has begun selling liquefied natural gas to China in yuan, marking a significant shift away from the traditional petrodollar system. This move is part of China's broader strategy to globalize its currency and reduce its dependence on the US dollar. India is doing the same with Russia. The nation has continued to strengthen its trade relations by using the Indian rupee and Russian ruble for bilateral trade. In 2024, they expanded this arrangement to include more sectors, such as defense and technology. But even more damaging would be the de-dollarization of crude oil sales. Saudi Arabia has taken a bold step by agreeing to sell oil to China in yuan. This agreement, finalized in mid-2024, represents a significant departure from the long-standing petrodollar system. The deal is expected to cover a substantial portion of Saudi Arabia's oil exports to China, further cementing the yuan's role in global energy markets. For Trump, China is the primary target. During his presidency, Donald Trump imposed tariffs on approximately $380 billion worth of Chinese goods in 2018 and 2019 in an effort to make China pay more to the United States. And this resulted in about $80 billion generated in taxing these imports. This move was part of his strategy to address China's unfair trade practices, including intellectual property theft and forced technology transfers. Fast forward to the Biden administration, which has not only maintained most of Trump's tariffs, but also increased them on certain goods. In May 2024, Biden announced additional tariffs on $18 billion worth of Chinese goods, including semiconductors and electric vehicles, resulting in a $3.6 billion tax increase. This move aims to protect American industries from China's unfair trade practices and promote domestic manufacturing. Speaking of electric vehicles, the EV war has been heating up. To counter China's dominance in the EV market, the Biden administration has imposed a 100% tariff on Chinese electric vehicles. This drastic measure aims to level the playing field for American EV manufacturers and encourage domestic production. According to investment strategist John Rutledge, China is sure to retaliate if these tariffs are slammed on their exports. But what would their options be?
But they will look for a way to retaliate. The only way they've really got to do it is tariffs and also with the currency. But truth is, they've already played the RMB for as much as they can get out of it. Most Russian transactions are in RMB now. And they're reducing their treasury bill holdings already by $1 trillion in recent years. There's not too much more they can do there. So I don't think they've got a whole lot more bullets other than drive a lot more battleships around Taiwan and make a lot more noise with it. But they don't have any sharp economic policies to be able to pull the trigger on here.
The way Rutledge sees it, China does not have a lot of options on the table that would be enough pushback to the U.S. Going this direction would only increase tensions between the two nations, while the tariff hikes happen on both sides. Truth is, de-dollarization, or reducing reliance on the U.S. dollar in international trade and finance, is a complex and challenging endeavor. The dollar is deeply embedded in the global financial system, with most international trade, especially in commodities like oil, conducted in dollars, creating a network effect that reinforces its dominance. The dollar's liquidity and stability make it a preferred choice for international transactions, whereas other currencies, such as the Chinese yuan or euro, do not yet offer the same level of liquidity and stability globally. The U.S. has significant economic and political influence, supporting the dollar's status, with large and liquid financial markets providing a safe haven for investors. Transitioning away from the dollar involves substantial costs, including renegotiating trade agreements, reconfiguring financial systems, and managing currency volatility risks. Moreover, there is no clear alternative to the dollar, as the euro and yuan face challenges such as economic and political fragmentation and capital controls. Experts agree that de-dollarization is gaining traction, but unlikely to happen rapidly due to the dollar's entrenched position and lack of viable alternatives. Geopolitical shifts, interest rate differentials, and dollar financing costs also maintain the dollar's dominance. Despite this, an international reserve currency like the dollar remains crucial for facilitating global trade, ensuring economic stability, and managing international debt. It simplifies global trade by providing a common medium of exchange, reduces transaction costs and exchange rate risks, and helps countries manage economic shocks and maintain investor confidence. The dollar's role in debt servicing, investment, and diversification of national reserves is also significant, providing a safe store of value and influencing domestic currency values through foreign exchange interventions. While de-dollarization may be appealing to some countries, practical challenges and the dollar's entrenched position make it difficult. Experts are sounding the alarm over Donald Trump's proposal to impose a 100% tariff on countries that shift away from using the US dollar. Trump's proposal could trigger an import rush, where countries facing the 100% tariff accelerate their imports from the US before the tariff takes effect, disrupting US businesses and supply chains. Additionally, this move could provoke retaliatory tariffs from affected countries, leading to a full-blown trade war. This, in turn, would increase prices for consumers, harm US exporters, and potentially slow down global economic growth. The proposed tariffs would also destabilize the global economy, causing uncertainty and volatility in financial markets. Experts argue that the US dollar's dominance has already been declining, and imposing tariffs would only accelerate this trend. Currently, the dollar accounts for 59% of official foreign exchange reserves, but this proposal could erode that dominance further. Countries like China, India, Brazil, Russia, and South Africa have already discussed de-dollarization, and Trump's proposal might push them further away from the dollar. This could lead to a fragmented global economy with different regions using alternative currencies. As a result, the global economy might become increasingly divided, undermining international trade and cooperation. As of the latest data, the dollar represents about 59% of the value of foreign reserve holdings worldwide. This is a significant share, especially when compared to other major currencies. For instance, the euro, which is the second most used currency, comprises only around 20% of foreign reserve holdings. Other currencies like the Japanese yen and the British pound hold even smaller shares at approximately 6% and 5% respectively. The Chinese renminbi, despite China's significant economic influence, accounts for only about 2% of global reserves. While the dollar's share has declined from around 71% in 2000, it still far surpasses all other currencies. From the chart, we can see that even though the US dollar is still the most dominant currency, it is actually on a steep decline, and at this rate, it would lose its dominance in a few decades from now. But for that to happen, then an alternative must first be developed for the Society for Worldwide Interbank Financial Telecommunication System, better known as SWIFT. It plays a crucial role in the global financial infrastructure, making it one of the significant reasons why most countries cannot easily abandon the US dollar. SWIFT is a vast network that facilitates secure and standardized communication between financial institutions worldwide. It handles millions of messages daily, enabling banks to conduct international transactions efficiently. The system's widespread adoption means that any shift away from the dollar would require a massive overhaul of this established network. To reduce reliance on the US-dominated SWIFT payment system, BRICS nations are developing their own financial infrastructure. Russia, for example, has introduced the System for Transfer of Financial Messages, SPFS, while China has the Cross-Border Interbank Payment System, CIPS. These systems aim to facilitate transactions in local currencies and provide a buffer against potential sanctions. Maybe more importantly would be the establishment of a BRICS reserve currency. There have been discussions about creating a new reserve currency backed by a basket of BRICS currencies. This hypothetical currency, sometimes referred to as the R5, representing the renminbi, ruble, rupee, riel, and rand, would serve as a counterweight to the dollar and provide greater financial stability for member nations. The New Development Bank, NDB, also known as the BRICS Bank, plays a crucial role in supporting these de-dollarization efforts. Established in 2014, the NDB aims to mobilize resources for infrastructure and sustainable development projects in BRICS and other emerging economies. One solution it would provide is funding in local currencies, which would make all currencies of member nations have equal powers. The NDB has been issuing bonds in local currencies, such as the Chinese RMB and the South African rand. This not only helps to deepen local capital markets, but also reduces the dependency on dollar-denominated debt. Despite these ambitious efforts, the path to de-dollarization is fraught with challenges. The dollar's entrenched position in global finance, the liquidity and stability it offers, and the network effects of its widespread use make it difficult to displace. Moreover, the economic and political differences among BRICS nations can sometimes hinder coordinated action. However, the momentum is undeniable. As geopolitical shifts continue to reshape the global landscape, the BRICS nations and their allies are likely to persist in their efforts to create a more diversified and resilient financial system. The journey towards de-dollarization is a marathon, not a sprint, and the coming years will be critical in determining how far these initiatives can go. And while we wait to see what happens next, don't waste any time and hit the like button and subscribe to the channel to stay updated on all the latest news. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.